He thought I would break without him. Instead, I found myself, and my power. It's a story about courage, faith, and becoming who you were always meant to be. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, it's Grace. Sit back, relax, and listen closely, because this story might just heal a part of you. I'm 30 years old now, and I've learned that sometimes, the most painful chapters of our lives are the ones that teach us the most profound lessons. This is the story of my marriage. It's a story about love, about struggle, about losing someone you thought you knew, and finding yourself in the wreckage. It's the story of me and my late husband, Martin. And it starts, as most stories do, with a promise. Please, before I proceed, kindly hit subscribe button, like, share this story to you loved ones. Thank you so much. I met Martin when I was 21. He wasn't the man you might have seen in magazines in recent years. He wasn't a man who wore tailored suits and drove a luxury car. The Martin the first met had holes in his favorite jumper, a laugh that was loud and a little goofy, and a dream in his eyes so big it felt like it could light up the whole city. He was a junior architect, working crazy hours for a firm that barely paid him enough to cover the rent on his tiny, one-bedroom flat. He had nothing to his name but a beat-up old car that coughed and sputtered every morning, and a portfolio full of brilliant designs that no one had given a chance yet. But oh, I saw him. I saw the fire in him. I didn't fall in love with his potential, I fell in love with his heart, his kindness, and the way he looked at me like I was the only person in the world who understood his vision. He used to say, "Grace, you're my foundation. With you, I can build anything." And I believed him. We both did. We got married a year later. It was a small ceremony at the local registry office, with about 15 of our closest friends and family. My dress was from a second-hand shop, and our wedding rings were simple silver bands. We couldn't afford a honeymoon, so we spent the weekend painting the walls of our first apartment together. It was a cramped little place above a bakery, and it always smelled faintly of yeast and sugar. We used cardboard boxes as a coffee table and mismatched chairs we'd found on the street. But it was our kingdom. In that little apartment, we were rich. We were rich in laughter, in late-night conversations about the future, in shared bowls of instant noodles because we'd spent our last few pounds on a textbook he needed. I worked 2 jobs back then, a barista in the morning and a receptionist in the evening, so he could focus on his projects. I never once saw it as a sacrifice. It was an investment in us. Every payslip I brought home felt like laying another brick in the foundation of the life we were building together. The change was gradual. It started about 5 years into our marriage, when Martin finally got his big break. A wealthy developer saw his portfolio and gave him a chance to design a boutique hotel. It was a massive success. Suddenly, the man who used to count his pennies was being featured in architecture magazines. The phone didn't stop ringing. Money, which had been a constant source of stress, was suddenly not. We moved out of our little apartment and into a beautiful house with glass walls and a garden. We swapped the sputtering car for 2 sleek, new ones. And I was so proud of him. I thought, we did it. All that hard work, it paid off. But I slowly started to realize that while we had built his dream, we had forgotten to build mine. I'd quit my jobs to support his new career, managing his schedule, hosting dinner parties for his clients. I had become an accessory to his success, and the foundation he once cherished was now just the ground he walked on. The more successful he became, the more of a stranger he felt. The goofy laugh was replaced by a calculated, charming smile for clients. The late-night talks were replaced by him working on his laptop in bed until I fell asleep. He started making little comments, like tiny, sharp pebbles in my shoe. "Grace, that dress is a bit simple, don't you think?" Or, "My partner's wife runs marathons. You should really find a hobby." He wasn't just building skyscrapers anymore, he was building walls around himself, and I was on the outside. He started to control things. He'd question my spending, even though our account was overflowing. He'd dislike it when I went out with my old friends, the ones from our before life. He'd say, "They don't fit our new image, darling." He was redesigning our life, and in his new blueprint, I was being drafted into a role I never auditioned for, the perfect, quiet, beautiful wife. Nothing more. Her name was Chloe. He mentioned her casually at first. "Chloe, the new intern, she's brilliant. So much raw ambition." Then it became more frequent. "Chloe found this incredible new restaurant we should try. Chloe thinks I should pitch for the Dubai project." Her name was a constant presence in our home, a ghost at our dinner table. I knew, in the way a woman always knows. It was in the way his phone was always face down. The late nights at the office that became more frequent. The scent of a perfume that wasn't mine clinging to his shirt. He was distracted, distant, and there was a light in his eyes when he spoke of her that I hadn't seen directed at me in years. It was the same light he used to have when he looked at me. The confrontation happened on our 9th anniversary. I'd cooked his favorite meal, the one I used to make for him in our tiny apartment when we had something to celebrate. I lit candles, opened a bottle of wine, and waited. He came home 3 hours late, didn't even notice the table, and tossed a small, expensive-looking jewelry box at me. "Happy anniversary," he said, already loosening his tie. Inside was a diamond necklace. It was cold and impersonal, something his assistant probably picked out. I looked at him and said, "Who is she, Martin?" He didn't even have the decency to look surprised. He just sighed, a long, weary sigh as if I was a boring problem he had to solve. "Her name is Chloe," he said. "She's 24, she's beautiful, she understands my world. I want a divorce, Grace." Just like that. A demolition order for the life I had poured my soul into building. My refusal didn't inspire him to try. It infuriated him. It was a flaw in his perfect new design. So, he decided to force my hand. The humiliation was a slow, public, and painful torture. He started bringing Chloe to events he knew I'd be at, introducing me with a dismissive wave as my wife. He would praise her in front of our friends, talking about her sharp mind and her beauty, while I stood right there, invisible. He changed the locks on our joint bank accounts, giving me a small allowance, as if I were a child. He wanted to make me feel so small, so worthless, that I would have no choice but to crawl away. He told me I was holding him back, that I was a relic of a past he had outgrown. The man who once called me his foundation now treated me like a piece of rubble he needed to clear away. The worst part was the loneliness. The beautiful house felt like a cold, empty museum of a life I once had. Friends we'd made through his work sided with him. They saw the powerful, charming Martin and the quiet, simple Grace, and they made their choice. My old friends, my true friends, rallied around me, but it was hard for them to watch. The fight got uglier. Lawyers got involved. He offered me a settlement that was insulting, a fraction of what we had built together, on the condition that I leave quietly and without a fuss. He wanted to erase me. I remember one night, he came into the bedroom where I was sleeping in the guest room, and he just looked at me with such disdain. "Why are you making this so difficult, Grace? Just accept it. Your part in the story is over." That was the last time he ever spoke to me. A week later, the phone rang at 3 a.m. It was a number I didn't recognize. A stern, professional voice on the other end identified himself as a police officer. There had been an accident. Martin had been driving home from a late dinner with Chloe. He was speeding, it was raining, he lost control of the car. He was gone. Just like that. The man who was my greatest love and my deepest pain, the architect of my dreams and my sorrow, was gone. I felt nothing. It wasn't sadness, it wasn't relief. It was a hollow, echoing silence. The storm had passed, and all that was left was a deafening quiet. The funeral was a spectacle. It was exactly the kind of grand, ostentatious event Martin would have wanted. All of his important clients and colleagues were there, speaking in hushed tones about the tragic loss of a visionary. And right there, in the front row, was Chloe. Dressed in a chic black dress, dabbing her eyes with a lace handkerchief, playing the part of the grieving widow. She accepted condolences as if she were his next of kin, while I stood in the back, a ghost in my own husband's life story. Martin's parents, who had always been a little intimidated by his success, didn't know what to do. They gave me awkward hugs, their eyes flickering over to the young, beautiful woman who had captured their son's heart. I felt completely and utterly alone. A few days after the funeral, I received a letter. It was from a law firm I didn't recognize. It was a formal summons for the reading of Martin's last will and testament. My heart sank. Of course. The final nail in the coffin of my worth. He had undoubtedly drafted a new will the moment he decided to leave me, ensuring Chloe got everything. His business, the house, the fortune we had technically built together. I almost didn't go. What was the point? To endure one final, public humiliation. My best friend, Sarah, convinced me. "You have to go, Grace," she said. "You have to face it, close the book, and then you can finally start your own story." So I put on a simple dress, held my head high, and walked into that lion's den. The law office was as cold and impersonal as Martin had become. The air in the conference room was thick with tension. Martin's parents were there, looking anxious. His business partner, a man who had stopped making eye contact with me months ago, sat tapping his pen impatiently. And, of course, Chloe was there. She gave me a small, pitying smile, as if to say, "Thanks for coming, but we both know how this ends." She looked confident, poised, already the mistress of the empire. I sat down, feeling every eye on me, the scorned wife, just going through the motions. I braced myself for the final blow. The lawyer, an older man with kind eyes named Mr. Davies, walked in and sat at the head of the table. He nodded at everyone solemnly. "We are gathered here today to read the last will and testament of Martin David Fletcher," he began, his voice filling the silent room. "This document was executed on," he paused, looking down at the document. "March 12, 8 years ago." I saw a flicker of confusion on Chloe's face. 8 years ago. That was right after the hotel project, his first big success. That was before the glass house, before the international fame, before her. My heart started beating a little faster. Mr. Davies continued. "I will now read the primary clause regarding the distribution of the estate." He cleared his throat again and read from the paper. I, Martin David Fletcher, being of sound mind and body, do hereby bequeath my entire estate, including all properties, assets, shares in my company, and all personal effects, without exception, to one person. He looked up, his eyes scanning the room, before they landed on me. To my beloved wife, Grace Fletcher. The room was utterly silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Then he continued reading, and his voice was reading Martin's words, the words of a man I hadn't heard from in a very long time. To Grace, the will read, who is my foundation. She believed in me when I had nothing but sketches and dreams. She worked while I studied, she cheered me on when I failed, and she was the first person I wanted to tell when I succeeded. Every brick in every building I design is a testament to her faith in me. This entire fortune was built on her love. It is, and always will be, hers. She is the architect of my life, and I trust her implicitly to manage what we have built together. To my Grace, my beginning and my end, I leave everything. Chloe let out a sound, a strangled gasp of disbelief. That's impossible, she stammered, looking at the lawyer. He was leaving her. He loved me. There must be a newer will. Mr. Davies looked at her over his glasses. I can assure you, madam, we have done a thorough search. This is the only and final valid will registered by Mr. Fletcher. He never updated it. Martin's business partner was pale. His parents were staring at me, their eyes wide with a mixture of shock and something else, maybe understanding. In his arrogance, in his rush to build a new life, Martin had forgotten to tear down the legal foundations of the old one. He had forgotten the promise he made in pen to the woman who had helped him lay the very first stone. Walking out of that office was one of the strangest feelings I've ever had in my entire life. I wasn't triumphant. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even happy. I was free. For the first time in years, the air felt light in my lungs. My steps felt like they belonged to me again. The sound of my heels on the marble floor didn't echo pain anymore, they sounded like peace. The inheritance Martin left behind wasn't a prize for my suffering. It wasn't meant to say, I'm sorry. No, it was a tool, a chance for me to start again, to build my life from the ground up, using my own strength, my own hands, my own blueprint. That will didn't erase the years of pain, or the humiliation, or the nights I stayed awake staring at the ceiling, wondering what went wrong. But it gave me something more precious, it gave me validation. It was like a quiet whisper from the ghost of the man I first fell in love with saying, Grace, I remember you. I remember who we were before success came between us. I took that as my sign. So, I sold the glass house, that big, empty mansion that echoed with silence instead of laughter. I sold the fancy cars, the ones that looked beautiful but carried too many sad memories. And I took a good part of the money and built something meaningful. I started a foundation for young, talented architects from poor homes, children with dreams bigger than their background. Because I knew what it felt like to have talent but no opportunity. I wanted to be the door that opened for others, the kind of door Martin and I once prayed someone would open for us. And yes, I kept the business. But I changed everything. No more promotion based on pride or power. No more treating people like tools. In my company, kindness is power. We value heart, honesty, and hard work. For once, I became the architect of my own peace. Now, my fellow woman, listen to me carefully, from one sister to another. Please, don't leave your home for another woman who didn't follow you to suffer when that man had nothing. Don't be quick to run out in anger when the storm comes. Because sometimes, when you walk out in pain, another woman will walk in, and she will enjoy the house that you helped to build with your own sweat and patience. You see, every marriage faces its season of heat. Sometimes, the same man who was once gentle becomes distant. The same woman who was once cheerful becomes tired. But don't always let anger lead you to pack your bag and go. First, pray. Second, speak. And third, stand firm on your dignity. Don't ever let anyone push you out of your own home because they think you are weak. You are not weak. You are powerful, but your power must come from calm, not chaos. And please, my sisters, understand this: standing your ground doesn't mean you should accept abuse or humiliation. No, it means knowing when to fight for peace and when to walk away for your sanity. When I said no to Martin, I didn't mean I wanted to keep a broken marriage at any cost. I meant, no, I will not be thrown away like an old dress. I meant, no, I will not let your guilt buy my silence. I meant, no, I will stand on my dignity, even if I have to start all over again. And you know what? That single no changed everything. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about me, my self-worth, my peace, my voice. So, my sisters, my friends, my mothers, please hear me. Be your own foundation. Don't build your entire world around another person's approval. Don't lose yourself while trying to prove your worth to someone who can't even see it. Because love, true love, is partnership, not ownership. It's two people walking hand in hand, not one person dragging the other along. If love makes you feel smaller, quieter, or invisible, then that's not love. That's control. And when life throws you a shocking twist, when everything you built comes crashing down, remember this. Sometimes God allows the storm not to destroy you, but to show you how strong your foundation really is. You can start again. You can heal. You can rise, not because someone saved you, but because you remembered who you are. The real inheritance wasn't the money. It was the strength to say no. It was the moment I chose peace over pride. It was the moment I stopped begging to be loved and started learning to love myself again. Because, at the end of the day, you don't need wealth to be whole. You don't need a man's approval to shine. All you need is faith, courage, and a little bit of self-belief. So if you are listening to me right now, maybe you're in that place, confused, tired, and asking yourself, how did I get here? Take a deep breath. You are not alone. You are stronger than you think. You will survive this. And one day, you will tell your own story, not with tears, but with gratitude. Thank you, my beautiful people, for listening to this story. If it touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more inspiring African tales. Your support means so much to me, truly. It helps me keep creating stories that heal, teach, and remind us of who we are. Until next time, remember this. Love, faith, and courage are the greatest treasures you can ever have. God bless you all. Bye.